Hey guys, so some of you may remember about a year ago I did a video where I talked about all the movies by my favorite director, David Lynch, and I ranked them. So today I'm going to be doing a ranking of all the movies by my second favorite director, James Cameron. I know him and David Lynch are not similar, but I have a very varied taste. Um, so over his career, James Cameron has made 9 movies, and all of them were very good movies. Like, he's a very consistent director. Which makes me sad that his first movie was such a stinker. So let's just get this out of the way. Piranha 2: The Spawning gets enough. Ah, God, I just like to pretend like he didn't make this movie. It's just such a mess in every conceivable way, from like the low budget, the horrible acting, the real dialogue. Like the dialogue, it has to be one of the worst dialogues I've ever heard in a movie. It feels like it was written by like AI or written by aliens who like think this is how people speak. Everything just sounds so like forced, and the humor just doesn't land. It just comes off as awkward more than anything. The when they get to like the action scenes, it comes off as like a very lazy, low budget Jaws ripoff, which kind of makes sense because this is a few years after Jaws came out. But yeah, just a horrible movie. It's not anything like a fun bad movie because I feel like after the first half hour of being a fun bad movie, it just gets very boring, which is probably the worst thing a bad movie could be is boring. Because at least with good movies, I can make fun of it. But this one, it's just a whole lot of nothing. At least Lance Henriksen's in it, and he's in like a lot of James Cameron movies, so at least there's that, I guess. But overall, I don't recommend unless you want to see like how far James Cameron has come. I guess he evolved as a director, but really, like anybody could evolve as a director if they made that as the first movie. So anyway, he himself disowns it. Moving on to his first good movie, Terminator 1. So this movie is awesome. Like, if it wasn't for some of his other movies, this would probably be the best. It's just an incredible movie. Made on like not exactly a low budget, more of like a mid budget, but they used the like budget very well, I think. I love the character of Kyle Reese. He's like such a likable action hero, as well as Sarah Connell, played by Linda Hamilton. Just awesome. How she kind of starts off as like this typical like '80s Valley girl, and she kind of matures throughout the movie, and by the end of it, she's a badass. Arnold Schwarzenegger is very menacing as the Terminator. He kind of just gives off this like cold, emotionless vibe to him. Um, I don't really get why he's Austrian though, if he's like trying to blend in with everybody, but he has this like really thick Austrian accent. That's a little strange, but overall, just a very classic movie. I could just watch this over and over again without getting tired of it. Um, so yeah, just great movie all around. I really enjoyed this. His next movie was Aliens, which most of you know is a sequel to Alien, but unlike most sequels made by another director, this is actually good. So this basically is similar in plot to Alien, but a completely different genre. While Alien's a slow moving, tense thriller, this one's a high budget, like very intense action movie. And I think that was definitely the right way to do it because I feel like what most sequels do is they just rip off the original beat for beat, but this one just takes in an entirely new direction while still feeling very close to the original in terms of like spirit. Um, I gotta say, like, I think Aliens and Alien are equal in my opinion, but what gives Aliens the edge is definitely the characterization of Ripley. On the first movie, she's very like she's just kind of surviving, like she doesn't really know what's going on. She's just trying to survive. The second movie, Souls are much more like hardened from the first one. She goes into the danger to try to save everybody, which is a huge difference. And I like the direction they took with her. Plus, I don't want to spoil the end of the movie because, like I said, this is going to be a very light spoilery video. But the end of the movie is one of the most badass things ever. Like if you haven't gotten spoiled for it. And the reason the ending works so well is because it's set up early on in the movie. So like it's foreshadowed and it's paid off and it's badass. So, if you haven't seen Aliens and, Alien, but that's by Ridley Scott, so that's not in this video, definitely recommend them. They're some of my favorite movies of all time. Okay, moving on to The Abyss. So, I feel like The Abyss gets the award for most underrated Cameron movie because I think this movie is awesome and nobody talks about it. So I know there's two versions of The Abyss. There's the theatrical version, which has a half an hour of the movie cut out of it for some reason, and then there's the director's cut, which is almost 3 hours long. And I've seen the director's cut, and I think the director's cut's awesome. So what sets this apart from other Cameron movies? Most of the Cameron movies kind of have like a loose formula where the first half or like the first two thirds is set up very like you get to know the characters, and then the third act is crazy, like just a bunch of crazy shit happening, just very explosive. This movie kind of does the opposite. So this one has kind of a slow moving first act where you get to know the characters, crazy explosive second act, and then the third act's quieter and a lot more subdued, which I think actually works for a movie like this because just when you think the movie's over, then they have this like other thing going on. The major threat is no longer Michael Biehn. It's like the whoever's in the abyss, which I'm not going to spoil because this is a light spoiler review. But overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I don't know why nobody talks about it. Ed Harris does a great performance, as does the lady who plays his wife, whose name I forget. So yeah, go ahead and watch The Abyss if you haven't. If you probably like it, if you like good action movies with a message to it too. Moving on to Terminator 2. So, this movie is probably my favorite. I know that's not an unpopular opinion. Like everybody loves Terminator 2. But it's just incredible. Like the action scenes, amazing. I love how they subvert your expectations at the beginning by making you think that Arnold's going to be the villain again. Um, just they kind of play off that it's a very similar movie to Terminator 1, but everything's on a bigger scale because the budget's like 15 times as big. Something I really enjoy about James Cameron movies is that even though they're all action movies, while other directors like create set pieces for the action, James Cameron always centers the action on his characters, so you get to actually care about what's going on. You know, he centers you on the characters, so when they get into action situations, you'll focus on them, and the action feels a lot more like natural and plausible than it would be if it's just like, "Ooh, look, explosion, boom! Ooh, car chase, boom!" Like some other movies, like Michael Bay movies. But James Cameron movies, you always focus on the characters, which I really enjoy. This movie tackles some very deep themes, about like humanity, versus like machines, and just about whole like ethical dilemmas. Like they kind of go into like, would you kill Hitler if he didn't do anything? Like stuff like that. Just a very interesting movie, and the action's incredible. Like it looks great. If it came out today, I think people would barely even notice because it just looks great. Robert Patrick's a great villain. Linda Hamilton's our all-time badass. Like if you think she was badass in the first one, she's awesome in this one. Edward Furlong was actually pretty good as John Connor. Usually, like the teenage wise-ass characters get on my nerves, but he actually had a lot of humanity to him and was much more layered. So overall, it's probably James Cameron's best movie. But that doesn't mean all the movies are like a huge step down, because like I said, the only bad movie he's made is Piranha 2: The Spawning, which the title itself. Okay, moving on. We have True Lies, which is actually I've seen this for the first time just a few minutes ago. That's why I've waited so long to make this list because I had to like watch all the Cameron movies I haven't seen yet. So this is the only comedy movie that James Cameron made, and it's still a very enjoyable movie. Well, not as like deep or intellectual as the other ones. I just think it makes up for it through like sheer humor. Arnold Schwarzenegger is very funny in this. Like I feel like he doesn't really get appreciated much for his comedy. Like of course he's like the action hero, but he's also very funny in it too. And Jamie Lee Curtis is absolutely hilarious in this movie, and her dancing scene might have awoken something in me. But overall, very fun movie. It's basically like the plot's been done before. It's like he's a spy, but his family doesn't know about it. He leads a double life, but then things get a little crazy. A much more dramatic version of this, I would say, is The Family Man, which is an Indian TV show on Amazon Prime. Definitely recommend that. But yeah, this movie, True Lies, enjoyable. But like I said, it doesn't have as much substance as some of these other Cameron movies, which is why I'm putting it second to the bottom. Still, huge jump between True Lies and Piranha 2: The Spawning. Okay, moving on to Titanic. This movie is a cinematic masterpiece, just in terms of like the visuals. And while I think it takes a while to get going, when it does get going, it's awesome. That being said, I do like kind of slower paced movies like this. I just feel like it just there's a lot of it in the first hour you don't really care about, but it does develop the characters much. You have like a really emotional connection to both Jack and Rose because of the full style of the movie, and when the ship starts to sink, that's when it becomes incredible. Just a very high intensity situation, and knowing James Cameron, it's very like historically accurate. Also, I've heard. Kate Winslet gives an incredible performance in this. She's actually one of my favorite actresses, just because in everything she's in, she plays such a different character. She's very versatile. Like, she looks the same, but the way she acts is completely different in this than she is in like Eternal Sunshine or Mirror of Easttown or other stuff. Leonardo DiCaprio is good too, but this is definitely a whole movie, I think. Okay, moving on to Avatar 1. So I think this movie gets a lot of hate recently because, I don't know, it's overrated. So obviously it has to be hated. I I don't really like that train of thought. Just because something's popular doesn't mean it's bad. Like, is this the best movie ever made? No. Is it still great? Yeah, it's great. Um, so yeah, obviously, most people have seen Avatar, considering it's like the highest grossing movie of all time. But for those who don't, it's basically like Dances with Wolves, except with aliens. So some people are like these like scientists who are trying to like find out what's the planet about and stuff, and like get acquainted with the species. But then those like evil Dick Cheney who just wants to take the land. So you kind of have that conflict going on, and it's also a romance where Jake Sully falls in love with Neytiri. Just a very great movie. Like the world building, especially, is great. And while the plot is not the most creative plot, like it all complex, I would argue that a lot of movies don't have to be super complex to be good. Like look at James Cameron. Which of these movies has a very extremely hard to understand complex plot? The answer is none of them. They're all very simple plots, but executed extremely well. Okay, moving on to Avatar 2, which I think is about the same as Avatar 1, so I'm just going to give it the same grade. Like, these are basically tied. I just put Avatar 1 before it because I don't know, kind of just started this whole train. So, if you know James Cameron, you know that he's great with sequels. Look at Terminator 2 and Aliens, and, not Piranha 2. Just pretend that one's not there. He's just great at making sequels because, so basically, Avatar 2, like Aliens and Terminator 2, have a slightly similar plot to the first one, but like probably bigger stakes. The characters, you're more invested in the characters, so you really get to care about them more, and you hope they succeed. Some problems I have with this movie is bringing back Dick Cheney, except this time he's Blue Dick Cheney. And I feel like some of the scenes go on a little bit too long, like the whole like partying with Blue Kate Winslet in the Waterland. That goes on a little bit too long, but overall, I like those scenes because you really get attached to Jake's kids, and I think the acting, especially from the younger kids, is very impressive. And of course, like Zoe Saldana gives a great performance as well. But I think Sigourney Weaver does a great job at pretending to be a teenage girl, even though she's like 70. So yeah, that was a very fun movie. Probably it's the first Cameron movie I've seen in theaters. So that's nice. I know Avatar 2's, I mean, I know Titanic's in theaters right now, but I don't have the money for that at the moment. But yeah, bring on Avatar 3 and Avatar 4. And if they make a 5, then Avatar 5. I don't know how many they're making. So yeah, this basically is my list of the best James Cameron movies. I I know he's often touted as like, oh, he's just an action director. He doesn't have like the best plots, which I disagree with. I think he's very good at character development. I think he's very underrated in terms of that. But of course, his movies are just very cinematic. Um, it's like what movies were made to be. So you could always appreciate that. But yeah, like I said, he really hasn't made a bad movie since Piranha 2. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think of James Cameron, which, like I said, one of the most consistently great directors ever. Um, Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, peace.